When I was first introduced to the Civil Wars, I will admit that I wasn't impressed with the idea of a folk Americana duo hell-bent on playing music that required the listener come up for air once the music was finished. After all, who wants to be sad? But there's a big difference between playing music that is intentionally sad and playing music that is sad as a result of an absence of happiness, or love, or affection for that matter. There's just something that resonates within our spirit when music just seems to perfectly capture ideas of longing, of unrequited love, and the distance of having and not having. It's the kind of music that really has its hand on the pulse of what it means to be a living, breathing creature on this sometimes lonely planet. No, it isn't very often that a duo like this comes around, and it's even rarer that any group can capture your attention from start to finish with not much more than a guitar in their voices. But the Civil Wars are the type of group that plays just the right combination of melancholy and hopefulness that steals your breath away until you find yourself gasping for air when the music is done. But when the music fades, they leave us with a single idea that reminds us that you don't have to say I love you in order to write the perfect love song.
All right, so I just listened to the album, and I'm very excited to talk a little bit about it. But before we do, I wanted you guys to talk a little bit about the formation of your duo and how you two met and what prompted you to start writing music together.
I definitely can speak for my end that there was no intention of ever forming a duo with anybody until I met John Paul, and even then it was this sort of magical slow burn that happened. We ended up meeting at a writers gathering in Nashville. Several writers were sort of called together to write for one particular band. They needed radio singles, and at the time, John Paul and I were both full-time songwriters on top of doing some solo music, and we literally drew straws, basically, to see what writers would go in what rooms. And John Paul and I, being perfect strangers, were two of three people that got picked to go into one room. And, it was just this instant connection musically, and just I knew where he was going when he was singing, and it seemed the same for him. And I don't know, John Paul, what would you say to that?
Well, I was one thing you said that I was definitely going to second is the whole that we had absolutely no intentions of forming any kind of collaboration, band or duo or otherwise. And I think in my experience, it's kind of been the way that the best relationships I've ever had were formed. I mean, it's kind of like with any other sort of relationship. If you're looking for something, you typically will find something close to it and just try to compromise and make it work. And with us, neither one of us had any aspirations of doing anything other than the solo thing. So it was just like we kind of got hit like a ton of bricks. All right, Jack. Sorry. Okay, I should give a disclaimer here. My phone has a really short cord and it's dying, and the only cord I have is next to my son playing Wii.
Awesome.
So you're going to hear The Last Airbender kicking ass in the background.
That's so perfect.
So, you know.
Well, and if you hear anything on my end too, it's my kid. So just letting you know.
Okay, how many kids do you have?
I have two. I have two, and one of them is sick today. So it sort of put a whole new spin on how to do this. Get through my day. Working from home. So.
John
Well,
Paul,
dude, I'm right there with you. We spent the entire evening being thrown up on.
Oh,
so
awesome.
by two, 4-month-old and a 3-year-old. So it's we're in quarantine down here.
Right.
I'm feeling for both of you really bad right now.
Oh yeah, it's all good. It comes with the territory.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess.
So getting back to the story then. So you had no intentions, and you got kind of thrown in together, sort of the put my peanut butter, my chocolate, and you put it together. And
Pretty much.
So what's the typical dynamic like? Is one person more of a lyricist, or are you both equal partners in that you come up with the music together as you're sort of jamming together? Or how does that work? I
do feel like. Well, go ahead, JP.
No, I was just going to say it's pretty much on any given day the dynamic changes. It feels like about as 50-50 a collaboration as it could possibly be. I know that's probably not the the exciting answer I could give, but Joy has an amazing sense of melody and plays piano, and then I come at it from a guitar standpoint, and we're both have been solo singers for quite a while, so we have a lot of the same strengths and weaknesses, and somehow on each given day we kind of lock up. And we've been extremely lucky that we've been really prolific, that when we do sit down, I don't know if it's because we know that we only have a finite amount of time together, seeing as how we live 2.5 hours away from each other.
Yep.
So time is of the essence, and everything that we've sat down, every time we've sat down, we've pretty much, other than maybe a couple of times, it's been something that we've either recorded and released or will be released on this record or soon to be. So been really lucky in that sense.
So do you guys...
Yeah, I will say... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that same dynamic seems to happen live as well, which is really enjoyable, I think, for both of us, having been solo artists, being used to sort of being more of a focal point. It's really great to have somebody that you feel very equal with on stage to share music, to share the dynamic, to share the stories, to share the light together, to create. It's really enjoyable, and I always keep pinching myself too, because it really was just we sort of happened to fall into it, into making music together. So yeah, every time that we step on stage or every time we sit down to write, we never assume that anything. I think we just never assume that like one or the other is going to take the lead. It's just a matter of being together and that actually creating a different dynamic than we could create as individuals on our own.
Mm-hmm. Well, I noticed that you guys seem to laugh a lot. So how important is having a sense of humor, come into play working together? Because I noticed at the beginning of your Live at Eddie's Attic album, it kicks off with that interesting little joke, if you will, about how if you're not sad now, you're going to be, and everyone laughs. But it's done with it.
Talk about that.
Yeah. And I found it very humorous, because the rest of the album definitely does take a somber tone to it. So I mean, how important is the humor then in performing music that is ultimately giving you a whole different feel?
I think it lets you come back up for air, don't you, John Paul?
Yeah, because the Eddie's Attic show was the second show we'd ever played, and so we learned after the first show, which was in Nashville, and to friends and family basically, and we figured out at the end of it. I don't think we actually had to say it out loud, but it was like,
no,
holy crap, that was really heavy. Yeah. The material that we write typically has a pretty heavy tone to it, whether it be positive or negative. I feel like we try to convey a lot of weight to what we're saying, and by the end of the night, even I was pretty overwhelmed. So I think it was just an unconscious decision that things, we have to, like she said, let people come up for air, including ourselves. And so it's become like it's just up and down with each song. We just kind of ride. But what we do on stage is what we do off stage. I mean, I was
just going to say that. That's like you're getting like what we're like when we hang at the bar. You're getting what we're like when we're writing in my living room. I mean, you are getting the living room experience, because I think we're letting it sort of all just be there.
It's a little less vulgar on my part when we're on stage, but
that is so true. Oh my gosh, so, I cannot stress how true that is.
you get a version of us at least.
Well, you guys certainly nail sadness, melancholy. You have this sense of capturing the blues, all rolled up into like an Americana / folk music. I think that's that's part of what resonates with these songs, though, is that it very much